Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. Today we'll discuss a short halacha that is a very popular one, very much negeya, different customs amongst Klal Yisrael, the concept of kitnius on Pesach. And I just want to touch upon the yesod of the rule so people should understand what the dialogue, what the discussion here is, and why are there some, like the Sfardim, who seem to be more makel, and the Ashkenazim, who are very machmer. What's the discussion here? And obviously, when it's neshayla, it's nageh la'alacha la'maisa, and an individual, like somebody really needs it, if it's a chayla, rachman l'tzlan, or anything like that, you should ask your local rav. It all basically starts that the Mishnah in Pesachim says that there are only certain ingredients that you could use to bake the matzah. And the Mishnah in Pesachim says that there are the chameshas minei dagon, the 5 grains, are the only ones that are allowed to be used for baking matzah. The 5 grains are chita, sa'ira, kusmin, shibayla shuel, and shifain. In English, it would be wheat, barley, rye, spelt, and oats. Now, an interesting thing that people should remember, that when you are choosing what sort of matzah to buy, halachically, it's best to follow the order of the Mishnah. The one that's mentioned first is more of a hiddur to use as the ingredient of what the matzah is made from. Why specifically these chameshas minei dagon? So the Gemara discusses because these are boim lidei chimutz. These, if you don't hasten, you don't do the kneading and the preparation quickly, they will become chametz. They will rise and become what the Torah does not want to have available during the days of Pesach. Any other ingredient that you may use that could look like bread, and any other flour even, will not, the Gemara says, will not become chametz. It will become sirochain. It will decay. And that's different than what the Torah has, what the Torah classifies as the ingredient which could become chametz, and therefore only these dagan which could become chametz is allowed to be made into matzah. So in the world of theory, all these things that do not become chametz, they become, at very most, they become sirach and they become decay. You have no issues of chametz with them. So in theory, kitnius, which again, you have to know that the kitnius family, as it was originally in the times of Chazal when they made this takana, was much smaller because much less was available than there is today in kitnius. So I'm going to be careful not to use examples because that's the gray area. What originally was kitnius was much smaller than what the poskim expand into today's times, that it's all part of the kitnius family, which also became an issue. But originally, the time of the Gemara, it was only an issue in the chameshas minei dagan, any food product that was made with grain, with the five sorts of grain mentioned before, being that they're able to become chametz, you have to be careful. And matzah could only be made with them, with those. Anything else, you have no issue with, because they can't even become chametz. However, Chazal came along and said that we have a concern. We have a concern about kitnius, and we would like for you to refrain from using the family of kitnius on Pesach. Basically, it boils down to 3 reasons. I'm giving you a collection of the reasons that are brought. Not all poskim can bring all reasons, but just to give you understanding what the concerns are. Reason number 1, and before I say this, you should know that the Gemara in Pesachim Daf Kuf Yudalul Amud Beis brings that Rava would eat rice on Pesach, oires, because in the time of the Gemara, it wasn't even considered an issue. The reason why we are concerned with the kitnius family is 3, as I mentioned before, basically 3 points. Number 1, you're able to cook up kitnius, legumes, similar to how you cook up wheat. And we are afraid that if a person cooks up rice, and being that that's a dish made the way grain is made, if you allow him to do this, it might mislead him to do that too, which the grain is for sure prohibited. The second reason is that even minei kitnius, there are some of the kitnius that you can make fine, you can make it into flour. And when it's made into flour, for the person watching, he does not know that this flour is made out of corn, kitnius. It looks, for him, he can mistake that it's regular flour made out of wheat. And if he sees a Hasidic person making a dish from flour and liquid on Pesach, he says, if he could do it, I could do it. Not knowing that that person is using kitnius flour. So to protect ourselves from that chashash, we eliminate any kitnius that can make flour. Last but not least, there is another concern, and that is that the fields that grow kitnius are in proximity or very close to the fields that grow dagan, grain. So even though the issue is only with dagan, but sometimes you find grain in the piles of kitnius. And I actually saw that some say that the farmers insist to use the fields, change the routine of the fields, planting and growing different things. It gives more energy to the field, because if you grow the same thing for year after year, it sucks out, it dries out whatever moisture, whatever sustenance there is in the earth. So therefore, they keep on changing what to plant and grow in that field. Uvachein, there's a very interesting chashash, very important chashash, that when you're picking up, you're collecting what you think is only kitnius, only legumes, which shouldn't be a problem of Pesach, but there might be leftovers of the dagan, the grain, which is a problem of Pesach, during Pesach. Now, even the Svardim, as we'll soon see, that the Svardim, the Beis Yosef said, I have no concern with, I have no concern of kitnius. The Lashon of Beis Yosef and Simon Tafn and Gimel is, Ein mi shechoishesh l'dvarim halalu. There is nobody that should worry about kitnius. Zulasi Ashkenazim. The Ashkenazim accepted upon themselves the chumrah of kitnius. But even the Svardim, which are more makel, they're not so concerned about these issues, still have to sift through and check through the flours that are made from kitnius to make sure that there's no dagan. That they still have that worry. The other worries that might appear, might look, might mislead somebody, they say, after all, it's a mutadika food. If it's a mutadika food, why should we make extra chumras? So the Beis Yosef was very much to be makel, and the Ramah brings to be machmir. So the obvious question is, what happens if a husband and wife marry? One is a Svardi and one is an Ashkenazi. So Rav Moshe Feinstein paskins in simple words, based on simple logic, that the woman always follows the minig of her husband. Whatever minig her husband had or brings into the family, that's the minig that the woman has to follow. Why? Because we have a rule of ishtoi kigufoi. The woman becomes like an extension as part of the husband. If the husband passes away, and now she's left single, so the Rav Moshe paskins, it depends if there are children. If there are children, so there is still life from the husband, so she should still continue doing the husband's minhagim. If Rahman al-Atzlan, there were no children and the husband passed away, then she goes back to her original minig. But Rav Moshe says another practical, another simple raya for this. We know that in Shulchan Aruch over and over again it mentions that if a person has a custom or does not have a specific custom, but he moves over to a new city, and in that city they act different. So the halacha is that if your intention is to live in that city permanently, you're not here just for a couple of days, your previous minhagim become batal, and you have to take upon yourself to act like everybody else. And it's a clear din of Shulchan Aruch, Siman Reish Yudalid Si'iv Beis. So if a woman gets married to a husband, to a man, it's no less than a person moving to a new city. And if a person living to a new city, he takes upon himself those customs, the same a woman moving into her husband's house takes upon herself their husband's chumras or kulas, and she does whatever the husband does. According to this, if a Isha Ashkenazis marries a Svardi, Ramosha Paskin, the woman is allowed to eat kitnius, and she doesn't even have to make Ataras Nadarim, because that's part of moving from place to place. Nevertheless, it's best if she would still make Ataras Nadarim, because the first 20 or so years of her life, she had a certain minig, so it would be best if she makes Ataras Nadarim. Shekayach, and please join us again next week.